Howdy, guys, and welcome to night 81 of Big Brother Season 23's overnight feed recaps. And welcome to Cliff Notes from outside the Big Brother house. A good Sunday morning to y'all. Hope everyone's enjoying their weekend. The last weekend of the season inside the Big Brother house. We've got the finale this week. And I gotta say, I'm ready for it. We don't have a whole lot left that needs to happen inside the house. One more bit of a competition, and then we get to award the winner. I'm ready. Yeah, season's been just a little predictable, which always happens when you have a big alliance that stays in control. So I'm ready to see who the winner is, see who our first winner is that takes home $750,000. Man, I'm jealous. All right, so last night, well, first of all, we do know a little bit what happened in the house. We know that Xavier won the first round of the final three competitions, so he'll be competing in the very last comp of the season to see who gets to decide who they want to sit next to in the final two in front of the jury. So we had that, but yesterday we also had part two of the competition. So now we know who Xavier is going to be competing against to make that decision. And the winner of part two of the final three competition is Azah. Azah won an HOH earlier. Now she has won the right to go up against Xavier to figure out who they're going to take with them to the final two and argue their case before the jury. And Big D. Big D with 0 competition wins and a resume that pretty much starts and ends with him coming up with the name of the Cookout Alliance is almost certain to walk out with $750,000. If Azah wins this final competition, I think she takes Big D along. If Xavier wins, I think he takes Big D along. Big D's walking out of here this week with $75,000. So, you know what? There's a lot of different routes that you take to get to a final two, and Big D's certainly a unique strategy, isn't it? All right, so the veto competition, it's not veto competition, the final two competition, or the part two of the final three competition. I gotta get these terms right. Sounds like it was a bit of a combination between some athleticism and also house guest memory. I heard talk that it may have been some sort of a treadmill that they had to run on, and they had to go to a certain run until maybe a house guest picture showed up or something. They had to put house guest pictures in order, and somehow the order was determined by running on this treadmill. Big D had a hard time on it, it sounds like, from both a timing standpoint and just a pure kind of injury standpoint. Azah finished in 12 minutes. Big D finished in 20 minutes, and Big D is hurt. Big D has torn up his knees. He's got his knees wrapped up. He's talking about massive rug burns. My veto competition during my season, I had to use a freaking slingshot, launch balls everywhere. It took me forever, and I tore up my knees the same way. So I certainly sympathize with Derek. He's not feeling great. He's upset. We get back to the live feeds. He's upset, one, because he's injured and his knees are killing him, but two, I think he just realizes that was his last chance. Win or lose, he's not going to be able to talk about winning any competitions while in the house. And we're not just talking for the next few days. For the rest of his career, for whenever anyone talks about Big Brother and they talk about Big D, they're going to talk about the guy who was 0 for... How many events did he compete in? I had 20 or something? I don't know. A lot of events that that Big D just didn't quite make it to the end. They came in second a few times, but Big D's upset. He realizes he won't be able to claim that he won a single thing while he's inside the house. And I get that's kind of tough. But we do have him griping a little bit about that. Eventually, we've got Xavier and Azah. They're playing cards. Man, they ought to be grateful for having those cards. They're playing cards at the table. Big D's fixing dinner for everyone. So no game discussion going on whatsoever. Xavier is talking a little bit later. He's talking about the fact that he went on the block 4 times this season. He did what he felt like he needed to do at times. Azah's talking about the fact that she's saying, yeah, I guess I was kind of a floater. And she said, I never liked floaters. I never liked the floater strategy in Big Brother. And she references Andy Herron and said, yeah, I just don't like floaters. At one point, Xavier said something like, yeah, before now, all the floaters have been rats. I don't necessarily buy that. It's a valid strategy, but Azah's acknowledging that that's kind of how she's made it to the end, is a bit of a floater type strategy. They're talking a little bit more about, she's talking about how it's funny that once she and Big D made jury, suddenly everyone started hanging out with them. They were the They were the remaining jokers. Once Brittany was gone, especially, they were the remaining two jokers, and they were kind of the jokes in the house to some degree. But as soon as they made jury, everyone wanted to come in and visit with Oz and Big D. Yeah, funny how that works when you've got to count on their vote for $750,000, right? So she's talking about that. She's also talking about that it was kind of nice once they made it to the final six. Once it was just the cookout that was left, suddenly everyone wanted to take Big D and Ozza with them to the final two. And she's right to some degree. That's why sometimes it's a little dangerous when you keep those floaters, when you keep the non-threats in the game longer than you probably should, because suddenly they become attractive to others instead of an easy person to get out the door. We've got Ozza and Xavier talking a little bit about jury votes. Xavier saying that, look, I truly think, Ozza, a final two between you and me would be a toss-up, and I'm not sure that the jury wouldn't award you the title if it came down to the two of us. No, he's absolutely wrong. I think he's buttering up Ozza just a little bit. Maybe he's floating some things out there just in case she won the final one to make her want to take him. I don't think it ever happens, but Xavier is still very much playing the game from a social relationship standpoint. All right, a couple more things going on. One, we've got Xavier talking to Ozza. He's telling her, saying, look, I knew I couldn't get too close to you or Alyssa personally because y'all are the kind of women that I would date in the real world, and that would interfere with my game. It was just too dangerous for me to be getting involved with y'all personally, so I just couldn't do it. Well, with Ozza still having possible chances to decide who goes to the final two, again, Xavier is still building those bonds with her, buttering her up a little bit and doing what he can. Later in the evening, we see the two of them cuddling up some more as they've been doing, so they have a little bit more cuddle time as they finish up the evening. Now, one of the more funny events last night, it was almost worth watching the live feeds just because of this, was Big D finally decided he had to take a shower, and he didn't want to do it because of the rug burns on his knees. He is scared. He is screaming. He is hollering. He is afraid of the soap, says the soap's going to hurt. When my kids were toddlers, I had kids that were less worried and nervous about taking a shower than Big D is right now. He is screaming and hollering. He doesn't want the soap. He's afraid to even turn and let the water hit his front because it's going to hit his knees. And he's just going on and on. Xavier's telling him, saying, you got to be strong, Big D. You just got to face it. At one point, he says, do like a rotisserie chicken. Just start spinning around in there and get some of that water on those wounds. And Big D just don't want to have anything. He said, help me, Jesus, and just on and on. It is actually pretty funny to watch. We've also have kind of before and during this event, Xavier's talking to the cameras, and he's laughing. And he said, Big D thought that he was season 16's Derek and I was Derek's Cody. And he said it took him 81 days, but now Big D understands that, yeah, I'm Cody, but that Big D is actually Enzo instead. Okay, that's a kind of interesting analogy, but I kind of thought when you really get down to it, Xavier's kind of like Cody, and Big D's more like, like Victoria. Except that Victoria actually won some competitions during her season. Zing! All right. Big D is now upset. He's realizing that with his injuries to his knees, he wanted to wear shorts during the finale. Now he's going to have to wear long pants. So, the important things that Big D's worried about right now. Now, here's a comment. And I know this is creating controversy and a lot of talk already. I got to say, there's some people that are just souring some goodwill as they get close to the end, as they walk out the door. We saw Kylan do it earlier. Well, now Big D's getting his chance because Big D is talking about the finale and how it all works out. And he says, man, here's the thing. Xavier, if you win third, I'm going to feel like I just handed Ozza $750,000. He didn't say Ozza, though. He said a derogatory term that he's been called out before, and I'm not saying it here, but he says, I'm going to feel like I just handed that $750,000 for doing nothing but sleeping and napping. Well, Pot, may I introduce you to Kettle? Yeah, of all the people who want to call Oz out for that, Big D's probably not the one who, although when you're talking about sleeping and napping, you are talking to a subject matter expert, I suppose. So maybe Maybe we do need to consider Big D's opinions on those subjects more than anyone else's. But yeah, I thought that was a little rough. He, of course, he's still trying to build his own bonds with Xavier and trying to make sure. So we'll call it within the realm of strategy and social gaming, but he probably took that a little too far. He does say that, and then this is tough. He says that if it comes down to it, because of Ozza just sleeping and napping, he'd rather have Kylan win it because of Kylan's resume than Ozza. I thought Ozza and Big D were kind of tight. I thought they were friends with each other. The way he talks, and again, it's all about the relationships with Xavier. So I'll give him a little bit of a benefit of a doubt. But yeah, uncalled for, Big D. Don't be complaining because people slept and napped. Glass houses, rocks. We know where that's coming from. All right. Talk about coming back for another season. Xavier saying, man, this is so stressful. I don't know if I'd come back for another season. Big D saying, no, I'd come back. If they want to bring me back, I'll be back. Yeah, I would too. So Big D's ready to come back. He's saying he thinks season 30 would be a perfect time for All-Stars. He's ready to come back in season 30. Yeah, me too. I'd be, 63 years old? I'd take on Big D. I think I'd be all right if I came back. All right. Big D and Xavier talking. They're talking about past house guests. Big D saying, Frenchie would have helped us out. He would have been great. He would have been a great part of an alliance with you and me, Xavier. Xavier saying, yeah, he was trying to vote out Kylan, though. Are you okay that with Cookout would have only been 5 people? And Big D saying, well, he still would have helped us. It'd be good. Xavier makes a comment. He says, Alyssa was my best friend in the house. She just wasn't brown enough. I'm just going to leave that right there. All right, we got Xavier hoping that the jury is subjective. I assume he maybe meant objective, but he's saying, yeah, I hope they're not going to be a bitter jury. Xavier thinks he'll be good as long as they're logical, analytical, and he should be. That other than a bitter jury, he's going to win this thing. He's going to win it. There's no amount of bitterness that's going to keep Xavier from winning this thing at the end if he's in those final 2 chairs. And finally, we've got Ozza and Big D in a conversation. Big D's going on and on about, Ozza, you did it. My game is in your hands. I got to trust in you at this point. And Ozza eventually kind of calls him out. She says, Big D, we've been riding with each other from the start. Why in the world are you talking as though you're questioning what I would do if I had the final choice? She said, we're good. I'm taking you if I win this thing. You just need to settle down. But Big D, being the nervous soul that he is certainly continuing to question and try to get assurances that he's good. He is. I'm telling you, he'll be in the final 2 chairs. He isn't winning it. I think Ozza beats Big D as well. So he's not winning, but he's still walking out $75,000. So Big D has absolutely zero. There's nothing else he can do in the house. He's not competing in the last competition. I guess he can try to build some bonds, but I think even those decisions have already been decided. He's griping that he's got 4 days of doing absolute nothing inside that house. Well, you already spent 81 days doing absolutely nothing. What's another 4, Big D? So, all right, there you have it, guys. I'll just finish on that note. Throw a little shade, just having some fun with it. You got to have a little fun, right, as we wrap this thing up. Guys, y'all have a fantastic rest of the weekend. I'll be back tomorrow. We've got an episode tonight, so we'll see what happens on the episode. And then I'll be back tomorrow, tell y'all what's going on as we get ready to shut this thing down. We're going to lose live feeds here before too long, so we're almost there. Guys, y'all have a fantastic Sunday. I will talk to y'all later. Cheers, my friends, and SKD 143. Bye.